Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving into the history, the chemistry, and the cultural evolution of something that is probably sitting in your kitchen right this very second. Our goal today? To uncover exactly how one single, simple plant diverged over centuries to create drastically different global cultures. We're talking about a journey that spans from the serene mountains of Japan all the way to the smog-filled factories of Industrial Revolution-era Britain.
Think about this incredible paradox for a second. On one hand, you have green tea, right? Deeply revered as a symbol of quiet meditation and spiritual purity. But on the other hand, historically, black tea served as this sugary, high-calorie fuel that practically drove an entire industrial empire. So, how on earth did the exact same botanical species create two completely different worlds? Well, the answer isn't just about geography. It is this massive, tangled web of historical accidents, religious ideals, sheer logistics, and some truly fascinating chemistry.
The green tea aesthetic.
Okay, it's actually wild how powerfully aesthetics ended up dictating agricultural choices. In the world of the Japanese tea ceremony, which was perfected by figures like Sen no Rikyu, the vivid green color of matcha wasn't just, a nice visual trait. It was a strict spiritual requirement. That brilliant green was directly tied to Eastern ideals of silence, purity, and the wabi-sabi appreciation of simplicity. Because of this deeply ingrained cultural framework, the natural browning that happens to tea leaves during oxidation wasn't seen as just a different stylistic choice. No, it was viewed as a severe deterioration of value. Basically, if it wasn't green, it simply didn't fit the cultural standard.
And this aesthetic evolution built up over centuries. Let's trace it back. It started in 1191 when the Zen monk Eisai brought powdered tea, what we all know today as matcha, over from China. He actually used its caffeine to stay awake during really long meditation sessions. Fast forward to the 17th century Edo period, and Japan enacts strict isolationist policies, completely cutting off deep agricultural exchanges with places like China, which is where fermented teas were really evolving at the time. Finally, in 1738, a farmer named Soen Nagatani invents this absolutely brilliant steaming process. By immediately steaming the freshly picked leaves, he halted the oxidation enzymes dead in their tracks. This perfectly locked in that prized, brilliant green color and all those rich amino acids. This steaming method essentially locked Japan into a green tea trajectory forever.
Section 2. Shikoku's fermented tea anomaly.
Now, despite Japan's massive green tea dominance, there's actually a fascinating anomaly. Fermented tea quietly hid out in the mountainous Shikoku region. Why? Well, the geography there is incredibly steep. They literally couldn't build the large, flat factories needed for Nagatani's steaming method. Instead, they relied on ancient traditions, some allegedly passed down centuries earlier by the legendary monk Kukai. But more importantly, these isolated rural communities faced brutal winters. They needed a way to preserve tea for months on end. So, by fermenting the tea, creating regional varieties like Goisha or Awabansha, they harnessed lactic acid bacteria. This didn't just allow the tea to survive the winter without rotting, it also gave the locals some really vital medicinal and digestive benefits.
Section 3. The chemistry of preservation.
All right, to understand the global picture, we first need to clearly define what we mean by oxidation. When tea leaves are picked, their cells break, exposing all their internal compounds to oxygen. This chemical reaction turns the green leaves brown and converts the natural catechins into these highly stable compounds called tannins. Think of it like slicing an apple and watching it turn brown on the counter. It's essentially the exact same process. But in the world of tea, this chemical transformation does something absolutely magical to the leaf's durability.
Let's look at how radically different this chemistry is. Green tea is unoxidized, meaning those catechins are fully intact, but it also retains a lot more moisture. Even under absolutely perfect storage conditions, its flavor starts noticeably degrading after about 6 to 12 months. Black tea, on the other hand, undergoes full oxidation. It converts those compounds into stable tannins and is dried at high temperatures to severely reduce its moisture content. Because of this incredibly low moisture and chemical stability, black tea actively resists microbial growth. Its shelf life jumps from months to anywhere between 18 and 36 months, sometimes even longer.
Section 4. Surviving the long voyage.
Now put yourself in the shoes of an 18th century merchant who's trying to source tea from China to sell back in Britain. We are talking 12 to 18 grueling months for a wooden ship to sail from China, navigate around the treacherous Cape of Good Hope, and finally dock in London. The cargo holds on these ships were incredibly humid and experienced massive temperature swings. If they had packed unoxidized green tea, it would have completely rotted. It would have turned into an unsellable, mushy mess.
Black tea, with its stable tannins and super low moisture, was literally the only version of the leaf tough enough to survive the journey.
But here is where it gets really interesting. The tea that finally arrived in London was definitely not the same tea that left China. That brutal, humid, violently rocking ship transport fundamentally altered the black tea over those long months. By the time it was unloaded at the London docks, maybe 2 years after it was actually picked, its flavor had intensely magnified. It became incredibly harsh, astringent, and overwhelmingly bitter compared to how it was traditionally consumed back at its origin.
Section 5. Sugar, Class, and Culture. So, what was the British solution to this super bitter brew? It was actually an amazing mix of pure practicality and chemistry. First off, they started adding cold milk to their cups before pouring in the boiling tea. Why? Well, it literally stopped their fragile, expensive imported porcelain cups from shattering due to thermal shock. But chemically, the proteins in that milk uniquely bound to those harsh tannins, which immediately softened the astringent taste. Then, to take it a step further, they added sugar, which was originally an expensive luxury item, to completely mask whatever residual bitterness was left. And, completely by accident as a byproduct, they created a drink packed with vital daily calories.
This warm, sweet, milky drink quickly transitioned from a high society luxury into an absolute necessity. It literally became the ultimate portable energy source for the working class. Think about factory laborers working grueling, endless hours in freezing, demanding conditions. They heavily relied on this hot, high-calorie fuel just to get through their brutal shifts. And it was relatively safe to drink because the water was boiled. That massive hit of sugar and caffeine kept the literal gears of the Industrial Revolution turning.
It's an incredible social shift. Initially, the wealthy flaunted tea and sugar purely to show off their colonial riches. But as prices eventually dropped, the working class adopted it strictly for that cheap, much-needed energy. Ultimately, this collision of classes created a massive cultural bridge. Across the incredibly strict British social hierarchy of the time, the concept of afternoon tea emerged. It became a nationwide symbol of respectable family life, somehow uniting vastly different economic classes through a single, shared daily ritual.
So, the next time you brew a cup of tea, whether it's a bright green, frothy matcha or a dark, milky black tea, take a second to ask yourself, are you just drinking a simple leaf? Or are you sipping the final product of centuries of global shipping logistics, deep chemical reactions, and profound cultural aesthetics?